Hi, thanks for joining us for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. I'm Chris Cooper. Planting vegetables indoors before the last frost gives your garden a head start. Also, what should you consider before choosing seeds or transplants at the store? That's just ahead on the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to the Family Plot. I'm Chris Cooper. Joining me today is Lee Sammons. Lee is the UT Extension Agent in Hardeman County, and Joel and Diamond will be joining me later. All right, Lee, we're glad you're here today.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, as always, for being here. Now, we have a good question for you. How do we start vegetable seeds indoors? What do we need to know about that?
Okay, first we need to look at the seed and select what seeds we want to plant in that garden this year. If you carried seeds over from last year, you maybe before we get ready to plant, test the germination and make sure that they are viable seeds so that you don't lose 10 days in planting those. So you can put those in like a wet paper towel and keep them warm and just see if they start to swell. So that indicates that the seeds are viable at that point.
So we know that they're good and ready to go at that point.
That's right. So then we can take those that we saved from last year, or if you go to the store and look at the seed packs, you can purchase off the different seed racks that are available in your area. Look on the back of the seed pack, and it's going to give you lots of information. No matter where you live in the United States, it's going to tell you when is the right time to plant those seeds. So you look at the number of days before your last frost is, and then you want to count backwards so you know when to plant them, not too early, but on the right time.
Okay. And it's no matter where you're living, right?
That's
just
correct.
Look at that seed packet, it gives you the information that you need.
It gives you all the information you need.
All right. So what about soil? Everybody wants to know, what kind of soil do I need, to get my vegetable seed started?
You want to buy something that is a peat-like mix, something that will stay moist. You can't just go out in your yard and dig up the clay soil that we have in the south.
Now, why can't we do that, though?
Because you're not going to get the drainage to occur in the germination mix. So, so we like to get a sterile mix. You may also, if you get something out of the yard, you may get a lot of fungus that may keep your plants from doing good.
Sure. Now, what about containers, though? What are the best containers to use for starting those vegetable seeds?
We want to start with a clean container, whether it is a tray that you can buy at the store, or whether you have a pot left from last year. You want to wash it and make sure that it is sterile, doesn't have any fungus on the pot, and one that has drainage of some type, because you don't want your seedlings sitting in just water. Or you can buy a different type of tray packs that already have these plugs that you can use to germinate. You soak these in water and they will swell up. You have your seed in the center there, and it will swell up and stay moist all the time. And they sell these type tray packs at different stores you can have. Some of them will have just a small plug that will swell and fill up the entire pack, and you plant in that direct.
Okay. And these are readily available for homeowners?
Homeowners, you can get them at different type stores, farm stores, your box stores, available in nurseries and garden centers all over the United States.
Okay, pretty inexpensive?
Inexpensive.
Good. Yeah, homeowners want to hear that.
Right, yeah.
Inexpensive. All right.
You can spend as much as you want to.
I'm sure you can. I'm sure you can. Now, you've mentioned a couple of times about fungus. So why is that important when we're dealing with starting our seeds?
Right. If we keep it too wet, the fungus grows in the soil and you'll get in the disease and the root system and dampening off, and they'll come up, but then they'll collapse, and that's usually from fungus in the soil.
Okay. Yeah, we definitely don't want that, right?
Right.
All right. So now let's talk about temperature effects. We get that question a lot, as extension agents. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about that.
Right, and that'll be on your seed pack and tell you what temperature to start your plants at. Most of our vegetables like about 70 to 75 degree temperature. Some of our cooler crops like cabbage or broccoli of that type, you can start them a little bit cooler. But your peppers and tomatoes, they need a warm, eggplant need a warm temperature, 70, 75 degrees constant temperature in the soil.
Wow, 70, 75 degrees. Okay. All right. Now, what about the moisture conditions? Because you know what happens, most people tend to over water. So yeah, how do we get the correct moisture conditions?
That's one of the nice things about these tray packs because it has a drainage hole there in the bottom, and you water it and it swells, and the water in the bottom of the tray will keep it moist all the time, so you're not having to regulate.
Okay, good.
If you're doing just a regular mix yourself in a pot, you can use a mister to keep it moist. Sometimes you try to just pour water on, you may wash the soil out,
Right, sure.
be too much force. But keep it constant, just moist.
Right. Can you do the same thing, with a pot? If you put in
You can do the
seedlings
same
pot?
thing with just a pot. You can plant your seedlings in just in a pot.
Okay, about that. So how can you tell though if you've gotten your seedlings too wet? What would be those signs?
Well, it would be collapsing, or you could not even germinate. It just may swell and never send out the plant itself. So.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Now, most important, right? The light conditions, because again, this is a question we get often, about the grow lights and such. So, what do you say about that?
Well, the grow lights, you can buy the fluorescent or LED. You want to keep the lights about 4 to 8 inches above the plant when you're starting out.
Okay.
And as the plant grows, then you raise your lights up on it. If you have got it too low, then you may get into little problems. If it's too high, you may get into more of a leggy plant with this stretching, trying to find the light.
Spindly,
Get spindly
trying to
and
get
not
to the
get-
light. Okay. All right. And so those lights again are something that homeowners could purchase, at the stores and things like that. Okay.
Our average lighting in the house is not enough for a plant seedling to germinate and grow off to a good seedling itself.
So you would recommend grow lights?
Right.
Yeah, if at all possible.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you don't have a greenhouse setting or something, that way.
Right. Yeah. And most
Most
people
people don't.
probably will not,
Right.
have one. So okay. So how do you get the seedlings ready to go outside though?
Well, once it comes up and you have 2 true leaves on the seedling, most time people will either transplant it into a bigger pot for it to grow off, or if you're using these type of starter pots and kits, you can leave it in those, and once it gets on up of size, you may want to harden it off a little bit,
that's
lower
nice
that
about that.
temperature. Once the seedling comes up, we really like for the night temperature to be a little bit lower than the day temperature, and that hardens those cells off a little bit.
Okay. So the night temperature lower.
Lower than the day temperature.
That's how it hardens off. Good. Good. All right. So what are the common problems and possible causes of seedlings not growing?
Most problem is it's not enough light, and unless you're doing some type of grow light, really it's just not enough light for that seedling to grow.
Okay.
And the other problem is the plants elongate and stretch because there's not enough light, and they get leggy and they're not hardened off enough to go out in the cold. Because when we set them out early, we're going to have some cool nights. If that plant's not hardened off, it's not going to do well.
Okay. So we have the plants right in the pots.
Right.
So how do we know to go from the pots to the ground?
Well, when it gets up of size, usually about 4 to 6 inches in height.
Okay.
And our temperature outside is going to be a controlling thing. If it hasn't, if they're still talking about having cold nights, and you may need to hold off a while. Or if you've got a garage or a carport or something that you can protect them from frost, but they still get some cool temperatures, they'd be okay.
They'd be
They're hard
okay.
enough.
All right. Really, we appreciate that good information about starting those vegetable seeds indoors. And you probably have a lot of experience with that, don't you?
No, I do.
I'm sure you do. We appreciate that information. Thank you
All right.
much.
Thanks.
Damping off.
Yeah, that's a real descriptive term, and it refers to a condition or a disease that happens. It's can be different kinds of pathogens that cause this, and it's when the conditions are wet and cool. Happens in germination beds with young seedlings usually, and just to prevent that, which is very common, it's a very common problem that happens when we try to grow seedlings, like particularly now. We want to grow something on the windowsill, it's still cool and kind of damp there by the window or whatever, so you get little old seedlings that just flop over. They die, the stem will die at the soil level and they just flop over, damping off. They fall off or fall over. But you can prevent that by not putting them in cool and wet conditions if you've got a little germination tray or something, or using a sterile mix, like go buy one of those soilless mixes. Don't get it out of your yard, which could be full of those kind of pathogens. So that's a good way to prevent it too. Always start with fresh mix for your germination beds.
All right, Miss Charlotte, seed or transplant? Which one?
Oh, well, you know, that depends.
Depends, okay.
I actually do both.
Okay.
Because I go by, like a lot of people do, the length of time that it takes a seed to germinate and grow to a producing fruit. And if it's a long time, there's so many things that can go wrong. You know, like there's, you know, the weather, there's disease pathogens, there's weeds, there's all sorts of those pressures in the ground. And if you transplant, you know, ahead of time, you still have the same thing. You don't really have all of the correct temperature or the moisture level consistent enough to germinate seeds. Now, there are a lot of things you can buy.
Sure.
You know, you can buy grow lights, you can buy germination chambers and all sorts of things that will help you, and you will have great success with that. So if is that a hobby of yours and you like that, that'd be great. If you have a greenhouse, it's even better.
yeah.
But, you know, a lot of us don't have those things. And so transplants for things that take a long time, like tomatoes, peppers, and even cool season crops that we can get here this month, like broccoli, cauliflower, and the cabbages. The time that they have to be sown to be able to get a seed transplant is usually in hotter weather or too cold, and so the germination is not that great. So buying transplants of those helps that process along. So you've already got a plant, but you've got to be willing. Somebody has gone to the trouble to grow that plant, so you know they're going to cost a little more than a packet of seeds. But I like to do both, and some of the things I think that are great to grow from seeds are sunflowers, beans, peas, squash, you know, all of those kinds of things. Things that are easy to germinate, that don't take long to germinate, are good candidates for seed production. And things that take a long time, you know, like tomatoes and peppers, those are better for buying transplants. Now, there are some seed productions that I have not seen anybody have transplants of carrots. You know, mostly you have to seed those in the ground.
Right.
But one thing you've got to remember, the root vegetables like that, when you sow those seeds, they're small. So you're going to get a whole bunch of them coming up all at once. You've got to be willing to thin them and just leave some so there's room enough for that root to produce in the ground. And that's the only thing you're going to have a little bit more work that way with those type of seeds.
You want to eliminate the competition, of course.
Yes,
that is.
definitely do.
All right.
So that's basically, and I do both. I do some seeds because I just like watching things grow from seeds.
Okay.
But I do buy transplants, especially of broccolis and the tomatoes and things that take longer.
Right.
And I don't have a greenhouse or the facilities or the apparatuses to have those grow. So I tend to buy those as transplants.
I think the majority of gardeners buy transplants anyway, especially tomatoes and peppers. I mean, because you see a lot of those at the big box stores and at your nurseries.
Yeah, but you don't get as much variety.
Right.
I mean, the seeds, there's such a large variety of seeds available, and you might find one that you really like, so you're willing to go to that trouble to grow that particular one because you can't find it already grown out in the industry. So that's one drawback of just going with transplants all the time. You're at the, whoever wanted to grow what, and it is available to you. That's all you have to choose from. Whereas a catalog full of seeds, it's got a much wider variety of plants to choose from.
Okay. All right. So what you going to demonstrate for us today?
Well, I have a fun little project that kids love. This is a good family project, and I'll do my windowsill gardening this way.
All right.
And I make my own. We're into recycling and being environmentally sustainable. So we've got these wood newspaper pot makers. There's all different kinds. You just buy one that you like. And this particular one says to cut your newspaper about 3.5 inches by 10 inches. And you simply take it at the edge of the pot and you roll it. Then you fold it over the ends. And then you set it in place by doing this. You see it comes out like that. And then you pull it out and you have a pot.
I think I could do that.
And you can, the thing is this, with the newspapers now, the ink is soy-based. So, you know, you can just plant this directly in the ground, but then you will fill it with soil. This is a germination type soil, so it's a fine, because it's for seeds. And so any kind of germination soil will do, and you put it in. I have this little tray that I put it in, and you know, here's some squash. We'll plant some squash, and we've got some sunflowers. So, you know, and a lot of people say plant one. Well, you know, this is windowsill. This is windowsill gardening. So I'll plant like 2 or 3. But you just, and you remember the seeds are big, so you're going to put this down in the soil about twice the width of the seed.
Right.
So when I'll set it in place, and then I simply push it down. And then I'll water it, and the good thing about this is you can water the tray, and it'll soak it up, so you don't have to keep pouring over the top. And then if you, of course, take your pencil and your popsicle stick, and you can write, well, this is zucchini, so you can sit it right there like that, and then it's labeled, and when it comes up, you'll know what was in that pot. And if you can see, sometimes windowsills, if you want to keep the temperature nice, you'll put a piece of plastic over, kind of make a little greenhouse in your windowsill. And when they do germinate and come up, they don't all come up. There might be this one may not germinate, and there'll be plants in all these others. And there might be 1 or there might be 2. You never know. Because it's not an exact science. You put it in a sunny window. I say either west or south. I have put them in east windows, but don't have as much luck. Because the south and the west, the sun stays in the windows a little bit longer and is a little bit hotter, so they seem to germinate better there. But it's not exact because, you know, the fluctuates from morning to night, and your house temperature isn't always right. It's dry, and then you may forget to water, and you know, so it's not an exact science, but it sure is a lot of fun.
Wow. So this is something that you do regularly?
I do it every year just because it's fun.
Look at the look on her face. Can't you tell it's fun?
Yes.
She's like a kid. Okay. That is neat. Something to do with the kids. Get them interested.
Get them interested in gardening. And then, you know, take the kids and you go outside once you have them and you plant them in the ground, and then they get to water them, take care of them, and then collect the fruit, and then you cook with it, and they eat more vegetables.
That sounds good. One last question, though.
Sure.
Can you actually plant that in the ground like that with the paper?
Yes.
Okay.
All
right, because it will degrade, I'm sure.
It will degrade. You sure will.
Good deal. We appreciate that demonstration, Ms. Joellen, all right?
No problem.
Thank you.
I have just seeded this tray with snapdragon seeds, which are very, very tiny. And one of the ways I keep the little seed, because it's close to the surface, from drying out is to put a little bit of vermiculite sprinkled over the top of the cell. And I just take it like this. I don't like the vermiculite under my fingernails, so I wear gloves. But I just sprinkle a little on the top over the seed, and the seed is really just sitting right on the surface. So this also helps it get good contact with the soil. And then once I do this on the whole seed tray, I will put warm water on the tray and let the water soak up. The vermiculite swells up and retains that moisture to keep that seed from drying out.
All right, here's our Q&A session. Y'all ready?
Sure.
Ready.
These are great questions. Here's our first viewer email. My fig tree experienced -5-degree temperatures in February 2021 Texas winter and grew no figs. Will figs return in 2022? And this is Lori from Texas. So Lee, what do you think about that? Minus 5 degrees.
-5, she's lucky for it to survive.
Yes.
Figs don't usually take more than down to 5 degrees. So if it survived and came back, then last year, figs produce on their old wood.
Right.
So if she didn't have any figs last year, chances are if it comes back this year, she'll have figs.
Good deal. Ms. Kim, anything you want to add to that?
No, I'm surprised it's still alive.
I am too. Yeah, figs are what, subtropical
Yeah.
plants. You know, so anything that cold, yeah.
Right.
Obviously, it died down to the roots. It will come back from the roots, and it usually comes back as a bush, as
Right.
a
Yeah,
shrub.
More of a shrub.
Right. And yeah, depending on the variety, and we don't know the variety here, but yeah, old wood or next year.
Next year.
You get production next year.
Right.
All right. So there you have it, Miss Lori. Hold on, right? You get that production this year,
Don't dig it up
2022.
yet.
Right. Thank you for the question. Here's our next via email. This one was interesting. My backyard floods every time it rains. What is an inexpensive way to get control of this problem? There are several spots like this in my yard. The water has nowhere to go. I just purchased a house and want to plant fruit trees, vegetables, flowers, palm, banana trees. I'm scared to invest in the plants if they're going to die due to poor drainage. Thank you, Anna. I like the fact that she wants to plant a lot of plant material, right? But she has poor drainage. So Kim, we're gonna throw it to you first. What are some of the ways that you think she can
She's gonna
correct
have to-
inexpensively?
Inexpensive.
Right.
She's going to have to find a way, even if she's grading it, to drain that water off, or she could just use raised beds. That's a lot of people do that here because we have the clay soils, and inexpensive is the problem. There are ways to, amend the soil and amend the soil, and then, but yeah, I would just do raised beds.
You do raised beds?
Yeah.
Lee, any thoughts?
I would do raised beds, but
yes.
she's right. Fruit trees do not like poor drained soil.
they do not.
So I would not plant those until I get my drainage corrected.
So I'm thinking raised beds, came to mind for me. Again, we talk about inexpensive, right? You could try, once it gets graded, you could try to add, of course, organic matter, organic material to kind of build that soil up, right? The third thing is this. You can always plant water-loving plants. A lot of these that she listed are not, like the fruit trees. So that's an option. But how about this one? Maybe a rain garden?
Yeah.
To perhaps hold some of that water, till it slowly infiltrates down to their profile. So those are some options. But I
And
know we're
also-
looking for inexpensive options.
That would also kind of, if you've got stuff growing there, it would break up the soil a little after it's been there a while.
Right.
And maybe she can, down the way, she could plant other things.
Right. Yeah, but looks like Anna has her work cut out for her.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure. All right, Anna. So those are some of your options. Good luck. All right. Thank you for the question. Here's our next via email. When you are cutting off small twigs from tree trunks, do you need to worry about branch collars? This is Brandon on YouTube. So, Ms. Kim, we'll start with you first. What do you think about that? Do you have to worry about that on the small?
I would still try to, you don't want to cut into the bark layer, but
Sure.
just, cut as close as you can without, so it will heal over smoothly. I think you'll be fine, as long as you don't want to leave little stubs sticking out.
Right, I
So
definitely
you
agree
want
with
to
that.
go,
Right.
right up to
And the
the
key word that you mentioned, heal. You want to make sure it
Heal over.
heals properly, for sure. Lee, what do you think about that?
I agree. Just make sure you don't leave the stubs, because
Right.
then it will not heal properly out there.
Yeah, cut outside of the branch collar, right, to prevent decay from entering the trunk.
Right.
entering the trunk.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's
And
what
it'll
you wanna
heal
do.
over, and especially those small twigs along the, you won't even notice those after a while.
Right.
So.
Right. All right, Brandon. So I hope that helps you out. Good question. Thank you much. Here's our next viewer email. Which is the best peach tree to plant? Not too big. Thank you. This is Paul from Point Pleasant, West Virginia. So Lee, best peach tree to plant, and we're talking about West Virginia.
I would recommend you call your local extension office there in West Virginia. They can give you recommendations on what varieties do well in that area.
Right, right. They would have publications,
Right.
of course, of peach varieties from that area or for that area. But here's something else too that actually, I know Dr. Natalie Bumgarner is from West Virginia. You know, just happen to know that there are a couple of different zones. So pay attention to your plant zones.
Right.
Because their zones actually go from 5B to 7A. Can you believe that? 5B to 7A. So make sure that you, of course, take note of that. And then, yeah, go to your local extension office. They will have a publication on peach varieties for your area. I have seen a couple. Red Haven is one.
Right.
John Boy that I've seen before is another one. And Bounty is one that I'm familiar with that you can grow up that way. But those are just three, but I'm sure they have a list of more that you can grow in that area.
If he's looking for a small, then he looks for a dwarf.
Right,
Right.
right. Because they actually have two. Not only that, but you have, of course, white flesh. Or do you want yellow flesh? Right. So they'll have those varieties, you know, as well.
Right.
You know, listed in their publications, I'm sure. All right. So thank you, Paul, for that question. Yeah, check your local extension office. They're full of good information for you. All right. Let's keep it, Lee. That was fun. Thank you much. Appreciate it. Remember, we love to hear from you. Send us an email or letter. The email address is familyplot@wkno.org, and the mailing address is Family Plot, 7151 Cherry Farms Road, Cordova, Tennessee 38016. Or you can go online to familyplotgarden.com. That's all we have time for today. Thanks for watching. If you want to find out more about starting vegetables, head on over to familyplotgarden.com. We also have a video about building a stand for a grow light for your vegetable seedlings. Be sure to join us next week for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. Be safe.